Let's turn this into this. Grab yourself a drink and get comfy because this is a longer video. First thing you're going to do is cut a hole in the center of all of your cake layers. I would recommend working with frozen cakes for this one because it'll be a lot easier to carve later on. Apply a little bit of buttercream to the cake board, which glues the cake layers to it, and then stack as usual. Make sure that's as centered as possible on the cake board, and then when you apply the next layer of cake, just check all around to make sure it's level. You're going to want to spread some buttercream around in the center of the hole to seal in the moisture. Here I'm just scraping off the extra buttercream I had on the side. Now we're going to carve it. So working with a frozen cake, like I said before, you're going to just cut this with a serrated knife into the general shape of a dress. Work in small sections and don't cut off too much at once because you can't add it back on, but you can always take more off. Once you're happy with the shape, let's move on to the next step. Now using the pieces you cut off, we're going to smash it up with some buttercream and create some cake pop dough. We're going to use that to create the draping of the dress to give it some shape and dimension. A lot of bakers will use modeling chocolate or Rice Krispie treats for this, but I honestly just like to use cake. When you're happy with the shape, we're going to crumb coat it as usual. Use a small offset spatula for this step to get into all the curves of the dress. This doesn't need to be absolutely perfect, but the smoother you get it, the better. Here I'm just cleaning off the cake board, and then I'm going to pop it in the fridge for about 30 minutes to set. When that's done, you're going to apply your final layer of icing. A lot of bakers will use ganache underneath their fondant, but I just like to use buttercream because I find that my customers like the taste of that much better. You can use a white icing for this step, but I just so happen to have some leftover pink. And then get yourself one of these bendy little scrapers and scrape that as smooth as you can. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but let's get it as smooth as we can. Then add some buttercream to the inside of the cake for the Barbie to stick into. Now using some of that extra cake that you turned into cake pop dough, we're going to connect the dress to her waist. This part is a little hard to explain, but all you're going to do is just kind of stuff this cake pop dough on here and connect it to the waist. You don't want to go any higher than the waist because that'll look disproportionate. As you can see here, the Barbie was backwards, so I had to fix her and turn her around. Even us experienced bakers make mistakes. And then just continue working it with your hands until you get it into the shape that you want. Then apply some icing and smooth it as best you can and put it in the fridge to set fully. While that was setting in the fridge, I rolled out this light pink fondant and I applied that to the outside of the cake. When applying fondant to the cake, always wear gloves and be very careful not to touch it with your fingernails because they will cause dents. I left the back open because I wanted to add a lace detail, so I'm just cutting that into the shape that I wanted. I started with scissors, but they didn't work very good, so I finished it with a razor. Here I'm just gently smoothing the fondant and stretching it to the bottom of the cake. You don't want to stretch it too much though, because it will tear. The bodice looked like crap, so I removed that and made a separate one later on. For the lace detail on the back of the cake, I used a rose stencil and rolled my fondant out on top of it and applied that to the back of the dress. Don't worry if it doesn't fit exactly because we're going to stretch and cut it. At this point, I realized I should probably have added the white part first and the pink after, but live and learn. Because I didn't, I had to peel up the pink slightly and then just push the white underneath it. I made the bodice of the dress out of fondant and applied edible glue to the Barbie's body and then gently smoothed it on. Cut off the excess fondant with a razor or some scissors. I added some beautiful rhinestone details here out of some sticky rhinestone paper that I got off Amazon. This rhinestone sticky paper comes in this huge roll, and I absolutely love it. I linked it in my storefront if you want. Using some fondant in a mold, I added a couple of bows to the cake. I wanted to add some more detail to the dress, so I used this fondant tool to imprint some holes where I wanted them, and then used edible glue to apply a whole bunch of pearls. This takes a long time, so be patient and just hang in there. I like to place them randomly. It's just more pleasing to the eye. If you had them too symmetrical, it would look a little bit funny. To finish off the dress, I applied a whole bunch of edible glitter because no Barbie cake is complete without glitter in my opinion. Now I removed the plastic so I can style her hair, but I wanted to add a few other details, so I gave her a bracelet and a ring using that same rhinestone paper I told you about earlier. Then it was on to styling her hair. First I removed this pink crown, which I really didn't like the look of, and then I put her hair in a ponytail and just cut off a few of the random stray hairs, being very careful not to let it touch the cake. Last thing I did was add some of that rhinestone sticky paper to the side of the cake board. I love this rhinestone paper. I've used it for several cakes and I still have tons left. It's so pretty and so sparkly. Highly recommend. And here she is all done. She was a lot of work, but it was so worth it. I hope you like this one.